Okay, I hope you can hear and see us okay. Welcome to drboystv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. Today, we have a great topic. We're going to have a great conversation with some intelligent Black folks who have a lot to say. And first of all, before we begin, I want you to get comfortable, sit back, and get ready because we're about to have a real conversation, a discussion that you won't hear in mainstream media. Give me a yes or no in the chat, everybody who's watching, yes or no. Did you hear about this whole Twerk on Washington video that was put out by it was actually put, according to Tariq Nasheed, Jeff Lightsey Jr. actually brought it to my attention, and Tariq Nasheed brought it to his attention.
Yeah.
and they showed a screenshot where this video is on the official Black Lives Matter page, and it said Twerk on Washington, that they were encouraging a twerk on Washington. And what I want to do before we start the conversation is I'm actually going to show y'all this video. It's fascinating. Let's just say that. And Mrs. G, I got to pop. Mrs. G is such a lady. You might have to close your eyes. It's not too raunchy, but it's Lord have mercy, Lord Jesus. All right, so let me just play the video. I'm not going to talk anymore. Give me a yes or no. Did you guys hear about this Twerk on Washington thing? This is in honor of Dr. King. I'd love to know what Dr. King thinks about this. So let me go ahead and just shut up and play the video. So hit the thumbs up button while I pull it up. Please hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe button right now if you haven't done it yet. I'm going to share my audio. And this is actually off of another brother's page. The page is he uses the hashtag not my people so you know how he feels about it. And I'm just going to share the screen and we're going to watch the celebration of MLK Day by Black Lives Matter with a twerk on Washington. And I'm not exaggerating. Here you go.
It's your girl, Shayna.
What will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
All right. Okay, so before I jump to Mrs. G, ladies first, I'm gonna ask everybody in the panel, describe this video with one word. If you were to describe this with one word, put your one word in here, and I'm gonna see who has the most interesting word to describe. I already see the word sickening from Calvin. I see sad from Lucas, embarrassing from Aisha, OMG. From I think I don't know if it was Tony or Ty. Ty said OMG. Mrs. G, what say you about this video? Mrs. G, can you hear us?
Yeah. I say porn. It looks like porn.
Okay.
It looks like soft core because it's outside and it's available for children to look at. So on too many levels, it's too vulgar to even be considered anything except trying to use sexuality to get something. I don't know what is she trying to get?
Liberation.
Yeah, she's trying to get freedom. She's trying to get freedom. They even have the Dr. King mix in there with I have a dream. So apparently she's twerking for freedom. Just like remember the Democrats did the whole booties to the pole thing. All right, so let me ask Jeff Lightsey Jr. What do you think this video? Am I overreacting? Maybe we should ignore the video? What do you think? I mean, do you think we should just kind of Be like, you know what? That's just Black Lives Matter doing their thing.
No,
What do you think?
no, we can't do that. And the reason, well, the first thing I ever thought about when I saw this video, I don't know if you guys were ever watched the Boondocks way back in the day, but the old Boondocks episode with Dr. King, and he calls out all the black people for all the foolishness basically that they were doing. And, he calls them out and says all kinds of things about them or whatever. And he basically says, I'm headed to Canada because, I've been gone for 40 years and I come back and this is what y'all doing. This is out of control. But the reason why this deserves our attention is because there's a lot of money that goes into Black Lives Matter, the organization, the big time organization. And I hate to say it because I think at the lower level in some of the Black Lives Matter chapters at the different cities across the country, I think they are actually doing great ground roots type work. But there is a bunch of money, millions of dollars that whoever thinks that they're donating to the black community, that it goes to foolishness like this, right? Like there are people who think they're supporting black folks, or there are black folks think they're supporting black folks or giving back to their community or whatever, that donates to Black Lives Matter, and instead they're donating to stuff like it's twerking on Washington. Like what is this? This is just foolishness. This is silly. This makes us look silly. This makes you think, okay, when you say the words Black Lives Matter, it's another reason for people to go and say that, man, that organization is a joke because we got things like twerking on Washington as a hashtag, and so that's why it deserves some sort of attention, because it shouldn't be taking place.
Well, Tariq Abdul Khalik, it almost seems to dig into also the fact that there are many people who believe that Black Lives Matter as an organization, that's not really our organization, but that's not as much about the liberation of all black people and what we're trying to build as it is about other secondary issues that relate to a lot of white liberal constructs regarding whether it's LGBT or feminism, things like that. And every now and then they show their hand. What do you think about that, T? That theory?
Well, yeah, I strongly do believe it's more of an LGBT feminist movement, and proof of that is when they first started, they had in their charter that they want families without black men. And if you notice in their organization, there's not really any heterosexual black men in any leading position in their organization. If you're not a homosexual black man, you have no space in that. And also, this is what we discussed the other day. This is why Black Lives Matter, these type of organizations get pushed in front of the black community, because it's degeneracy. This is what it is. Everything is playing around, and they got this woman up here twerking. And if you read the little, Instagram post that they had, they said something like, "This is African culture, and white supremacy won't be exploiting black women's bodies," or some nonsense like that. But this is why black people get these stereotypes, and to me, this doesn't even bode well as a good image for black women as well. I mean, this is where the stereotypes come from.
The stereotypes. Okay, so Tony, we got Tony Lindsay. Tony's a filmmaker out of Brooklyn, and so Tony, what did you think about this video? I mean, you are a guy that understands creative expression. By the way, Tony has a great film that's very popular, is doing really well, called Where Hearts Lie. And I encourage everybody to support the film and go look for it. It's called Where Hearts Lie. Tony, as a person who believes in freedom of creative expression, where does this particular thing sort of fit into that space? How do we allow creative expression without it sort of undermining more serious movements within the community?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. But I think it gets complicated when we confuse creative expression with steering narratives. And I think that not like today, we've pretty much been conditioned by white feminists to view black women's liberation through a lens of hypersexualization, and from what I've seen, hostility towards black men. But I think as far as this video is concerned, I think it speaks a lot to the dangers of allowing other people who don't have black agendas as priority to take center stage in our movements. I know we spoke about, the Black Lives Matter organization as opposed to the movement. And I think maybe one of the areas that we can start is by making a clear distinction in between the two, even though they are somewhat melding together, but there's just so many different interests that are within the Black Lives Matter movement, that it pretty much just kind of turns into using Black lives and Black death, Black oppression as a footstool to elevate other agendas.
A footstool to elevate other agendas. Wow. That's a very interesting way to describe it. Do me a favor, everybody, hit the thumbs up button if you haven't done it yet. And I'm speaking with an all-black panel tonight. So on this whole Twerk on Washington concept, that came off the Black Lives Matter official Instagram page. Tariq Nasheed put it up. Thanks to him for sharing this. And then also Jeff Lightsey Jr. brought it to my attention. And of course, I felt that it was time to have a black conversation about this. And and what I'd like to show everybody is I looked around and I said, okay, let's just make sure that it is what it is. You know, I'm not here to tell you how to interpret facts. I just want to make sure you have them. And so if you go to Black Lives Matter's Instagram page, it's right here, right? This is Black Lives Matter. Now, I don't know who runs this page. I know that the page has about 4.2 million followers. And this is the twerk video here. And here's the statement. The artist's statement is, Twerk on Washington is a declaration of freedom and healing, advocating for the decolonization of over-sexualizing Black women's bodies to reclaim an ancient sacred dances of liberation and wellness. Sampling the I Have a Dream by the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., delivered during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. The shame of traditional African practices is not ours. Trauma is kept in the body. Shake it off. So it seems like the artist is saying that that this is an expression of women's liberation, and while we can certainly have different opinions on that, I want to ask you, Mrs. G. There was one part of this statement that really got my attention, is when they talk about the over sexualization of Black women's bodies. There's a part of me that is confused. Right, I get a little confused when you say, I don't want you to over sexualize my body, but here's my booty and I'm gonna shake it in your face, right? Like that doesn't compute. You know, I mean, God bless your booty, good for you. But but if you're putting it in my face and shaking it, and then you say respect me, don't over sexualize me, I don't know how to reconcile the two. It doesn't add up. Mrs. G, what are your thoughts on what I just said?
First of all, I want to say that as a woman who is also a Black woman from America, this girl and whomever put her up to this thing should be ashamed of herself. And I use the word shame very freely. I am a teacher of the importance of shame and the importance of judging negative behavior, because as a woman who is connected to her African roots, it needs to be clear that shame and judging is a part of that. We also need to be clear that focusing on people's intimate body parts is not taking away the focus of the intimate body part. This is completely absurd to try to make a case that behaving like this is African. First of all, which one of these people has lived in Africa or even gone to Africa? Because if they did, they would know that there are some dances that are considered mating dances. There are some dances that are only supposed to be taking place amongst other women, so that women can learn how to use their bodies after marriage. That's what that's for. But because Americans have living in this ignorant bubble, we convince ourselves that a whole bunch of foolishness that does not apply is African. That's actually not the case. And you will not have dignified African women bouncing around like that if they have a daddy. So my question is, where's this girl's daddy? Where's the objection? Where are her protectors? Because it seems like she's trying to protect herself with her body by telling people not to focus on her body, which is completely what this is rat behavior. You know, I try to teach very often about the rat utopia experiment. It is a real, actual experiment.
Wait. When you say rats, what do you mean? When you say rats, I was thinking like, you mean hood rat, or you mean an actual rat in the cage rat? Like, what do you
I'm
mean by
talking
rat?
about both. Okay, both. This is a real experiment called the Rat Utopia experiment. It was conducted by
Please
scientists.
enlighten us. I want to know more about this.
This thing is a real experiment. Scientists conducted an experiment with rats in order to determine what would happen if you gave the rats everything and you remove the male rats' need to be able to hunt and to be able to provide. And when they did that, they created a bunch of really aggressive female rats. They created very soft male rats. They created homosexuality amongst the rats. They created a removal of natural ability to nurture for the female rats. And then the female mother rats started to neglect and kill and eat their young. Literally, this happened. Wow. And then we wonder, why is it that every single rat, when rats multiply naturally very quickly, why did every single rat die? Every single rat died in this experiment, which was funded by the American government, and they used millions of dollars to do so, to determine how to handle us.
So that experiment, tell everybody the name of that experiment again, because I'm sure we got smart people here. They're gonna Google that one.
This is called the Rat Utopia experiment, or the Mouse Utopia experiment. And basically they gave them everything they need, so the male rat was no longer needed, and it caused an actual extinction. So what you're seeing here with what I like to say safely, feminine fruity males and the aggressive females who are over-sexualized and masculine, what you're actually seeing is the play out of the Rat Utopia experiment. You're literally seeing, when people say housing projects, same thing. When people say hood rat, same thing. What you're literally seeing is this behavior that we're trying to break down and find what it is and see where it's going to. It's going to extinction. That's where it's going, just like the rats. They all died.
And Mrs. G is the cat who is pointing out the rats and the mice that are in the house. So thank you for educating us on that. I did not know about the Rat Utopia experiment. I'm going to actually look that up. And I did Google it while you were speaking. There's a lot of interesting information on this. Everybody, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. We're talking about Black Lives Matter and this interesting Twerk on Washington campaign that they put on their Instagram page. Every now and then I'll just kind of pop it up as a side view while the commentators are speaking. We got our all-black panel who are here to share their perspective on this. You can have whatever opinion you want on this. This is a free speech zone. We're not like the rest of social media where you can't talk. So feel free to think what you want. Just have an open mind and hear our panelists on this, and make sure you subscribe. So let me go to Jeff again. So Jeff, you're 24, 25. Is it 25? 25. Okay. So you're 25. I'm not 25 anymore. I'm trying to understand, I don't want to feel like a dinosaur, right? But sometimes I'll see things happen amongst young people that makes me say, wow, that's really not how to get somebody to love you. That's not how, but then again, I'm like, well, maybe people don't want that. Maybe that's not what the goal is, right? I don't know. But when I will see people encouraging, like, for example, I'll give you one example. There's a lot of talk where people talk about things like slut shaming. Like that, if you're a woman and you behave like a slut, whatever that means, and somebody says, well, don't do that, or people gonna think you're a slut, that people say don't slut shame. And that confuses me, because that makes me think, okay, so you're telling me that as a man, I'm supposed to see a woman who's just throwing it out there for everybody the same as I see a woman who protects, certain parts of her sexuality, right? That two women, maybe the same level of sexual desirability, but different methods of expressing that, right? Some make it a public commodity, some make it a private commodity. I value the private commodity. The public is like, yeah, well, that's for everybody, right? Is that, what do you think about that? When I say this, do I sound like a crazy old man, or what are you seeing as a 25-year-old, just in terms of just, the way people express themselves now?
Well, it depends on what demographic you're talking to, right? Like if you're talking to a group of feminists or a group of people who are just super, I guess what they would call themselves for progressing or forward thinking or left wing or whatever, like then yeah, you do sound like an old man because they will tell you times have changed. Yes, times have changed in years, but a lot of values don't change, especially within the Black community. They shouldn't change. Right, like some of the things, just because your grandma who was born in 1930s, that don't mean what she said wasn't true and can't stand the test of time. Like we still pull quotes from MLK or Malcolm or whoever to express ourselves and to show that we've been intellects for a very long time. Like old sayings and quotes, maybe old sayings and quotes, but they still stand the test of time. What's so disgusting about this video is the fact that they actually incorporated the not Malcolm, but Martin Luther King like speech within the video, right? To put it a part of their, twerk series or whatever. Like that is just disgusting. That is not what we should be celebrating when we're celebrating one of the greatest minds, the greatest people in the history of this world, right? But that's what is getting pushed. That's what's getting brought to the forefront. Not Martin talking about cut us the check and give us our land, but instead we're getting twerkathons and twerk on Washingtons and all this movie, right? Like I mean, we should be celebrating, and that's the thing. Like one thing that I wanted to talk about was, we should be more basically highlighting a lot of Martin's later speeches, but instead we're having discussions like this about twerking on Washington because an organization with 4 million followers, like this is not like it just got saw by 10 people or 20 people or whatever. 4 million followers of the Black Lives Matter page saw that video or had access to that video, and we're sitting here and we'll have to tell you like, no, that's not a representation of us, of intelligent Black people, of smart Black people twerking on Washington and all that craziness. That's not, that should be happening at bars and clubs and not in broad daylight publicly at the Washington Monument or whatever it was on DC.
Okay, so Tariq Abdul Khalik, when you see this, and all this is going down, and you've heard what Mrs. G and what Jeff have said about this. Is there a way that we can open our minds to people's freedom of expression and their right to be who they want to be, while at the same time, protecting the sanctity of our culture, right? But you're protecting decency. Like how do we balance the two? Because I would almost definitely say that when I try my best to empathize, right? I've learned that the best way to try to resolve conflict is to try your best to empathize. So I'm really trying here, and I do believe that when you go back to the civil rights movements and everything else that's happened, there was kind of a set of restrictions put on women that I personally don't agree with in every way. I feel that sometimes as men, we push ourselves and what we're thinking out to the forefront all the time. And I don't think that that's all bad all the time or ill-intended, but there are times where I think we don't listen to women enough. How do we listen to women while at the same time stepping forward, as human beings and as men, and just say, look, this ain't cool. What do you draw the balance?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, we have to understand that the imagery of what this makes the Black community look like is not good, because when it comes to Black Lives Matter, there are people in even Europe chanting Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter get chanted around the world. So when you have this young lady doing that, it kind of signals the world that this is the reflection of African American culture. And this is why we should not take them seriously. We should not take them seriously politically, economically, or anything of that level. We should keep them in play land and, talk about low grade stuff. So I would say when it comes to the sisters, it's not about, men are being misogynistic and we're trying to control you. We're trying to control you. We're trying to set a code, a respectful code in our community of how men and women are supposed to govern themselves, outside of the community, especially for Black people, because we have such a bad imagery, bad stereotypes, and bad stereotypes lead to us being, police specifically focusing on us. When it comes to movie roles or things like that, they put Black people in a certain negative light is because that's how they think we behave. And then you got this young lady perpetuating that. So I think with men, we just got to be firm and logical. and explain to the sisters that what we're trying to do is we're not trying to hurt you. We're just trying to protect your image. Like, you know, you don't want people to call you B's and H's. So we're just trying to protect that image.
Well, you know, and everybody who's watching, you can kind of see the twerk. And one thing that's interesting about this video, and Tony, I'll go to you on this. I noticed in this video, if you're watching it, you'll see that like it's almost, to me, it becomes kind of a little buffoonish in that.
Yeah, it is.
When she's out there twerking, she's not out there with a whole bunch of other people that are doing what she's doing. She's out there by herself in a crowd full of white people as the lone black person who's like twerking up the steps of the Capitol, and just I mean, you know, and you can't help but to just think to yourself, my God, you know, this is humiliating for black people. Like, this is not, you know, when you think about the way the black woman wants to be respected, I can't imagine black women wanting to earn respect in this way. Like, it just really it does come off a little bit clownish. What do you think? What do you say to that, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the most cringeworthy part of it for me personally, because as a black man who loves black women, you know, why can't we all say that we can have forward thinking, but still have some degree of decorum? Like, for you to be going up on these steps, you're by yourself. This is not like a dance routine that's choreographed by some group. You're going, you know, up to the Lincoln Memorial where people are touring with their children, showing them things, and you're twerking and you're shaking your ass in front of these kids. If you look, you'll see like a 10 or 12-year-old boy staring at her while she's doing this. So it's like that speaks to the minstrel show aspect that I was referring to earlier. And I just got to be frank, you know, I really have a problem with this notion that we have today that black men, or forget black men, that no one can question women when it comes to like the feminist movement, right? But we see that, you know, exacerbated really in the black community when it comes to black men trying to speak with love and protection over black women, right? See, I'm a father. I'm a father of 3 daughters. And I have a granddaughter. I'm a new grandfather, right? And I'm 48 years old, just for anybody who wants to know. So I'm still kind of young, but yeah. So whenever I look at things like this, I think about my daughters. I think about how people would look at them, how they would treat them, how they're, you know, presenting themselves to the world, you know? And I just think I think it's tragic to see this in this light and to see us celebrate this and make so many excuses for it. That's the biggest problem that I have with it. And I just want people to understand, and just like when you really think about this thing, we never see Democrat or white liberal sponsored ads that appeal to the intellect of black people without integrating some sort of symbolism or sexualization or some degrading imagery or enlisting celebrities who have like no real vested interest in the community. So I think we really need to start looking at things in a wider context to understand how we as black people are viewed by these organizations and how serious they take us. Because to me, not only was it insulting, you know, to our political intelligence, but I also found it extremely disrespectful to the utmost that they thought that it was appropriate to release something like that on this day. This particular day. That's the step that made it worse of all to me. But the honest truth is, I believe it was intentional.
Definitely.
I don't think that this was some type of a miscalculation. I believe that, see, there's several things. It's more of a subconscious attempt to tell black people, you know, like, listen, this is your role. You're the entertainment. This is who you are right now. But so it's like a clear dumbing down, like a normalization of us just being dumb and having our political IQ at like 10. And I think we really got to wake up out of this, man, because we're in trouble right now. We're in a state of emergency.
Wow.
Yeah, but
go ahead, Mr. G.
I would like to say that I think it is incredibly important that we are realistic because right now we are in a state where we don't need to worry about being dumbed down. We are dumbed down.
Amen.
We don't need to think about how we're going to keep our standard of ethics and standard of behavior. We don't have any more standards. They actually don't exist as a whole anymore. We're sitting here discussing a girl who has a long weave or whatever the thing is down to her waistline, toilet length hair, as if that thing is going to stay clean if she sits down and uses the toilet. The girl has no judgment. The girl is scraping her skin on concrete. She's scraping her skin on concrete. And do not need to talk about having a conversation with people like this. She's gone. Or as we say in New Orleans, she's gone pecan. She's not worthy of listening to. She's not somebody whose voice we need to be listening to. We need to take people like this and sit them down or move them out. They don't need to be allowed anymore to have their black card. We need to take that black card and give them a get back card.
Your black card has been revoked.
I just want to go off something that Tony was saying, and I think it's critical for platforms like this and for other independent media sources, because we will only, I think, now I want to hear from you all as well, but I think we'll only see the continuation of things like this because we do have liberals in Congress, because this is kind of the agenda that they push, the liberation, because there's a lot of things. I mean, there's some things that you might agree with, but this is not one of them. And this is something that they have to push forward, or they can't push back on. Maybe they won't always promote it or act like they don't promote it, but they can't push back on it because this is something that is a part of their agenda. It's like the over sexualization or the pushing or the non-slut shaming and things like that. Like, these are things that they campaign on. So as long as that's a part of their agenda, they won't be able to push back on this. And so over the duration of the Biden term or the Democrats taking over Congress, this is something that we will only continue to see more of. And that's why independent media sources are very vital in trying to uplift our community.
Yes. Well,
and the other thing is,
the
other thing is, I feel like they did this to get some type of white approval, because I noticed these actions usually take place in front of white people. Why wasn't this in front of black people? I feel like, especially with the statement that she made, as far as respecting black women's bodies and, cultural African twerking, it's almost to get white approval that this is how our women look, this is how our women dance, and get used to it. And if you look at the white people in the crowd and the other races, they kind of looked at her in disgust. Like, it's almost as if your point didn't get across and you embarrass yourself out there.
See, I hear what everybody's saying. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you, but
go ahead.
I don't want us to place like such an extreme focus on the people who are like doing the performance, so to speak. Because as a filmmaker, I also understand that, I'm a director. So I'm the one, that's saying this is how I want it to be. As an executive producer, I'm the one that's financing this and I'm producing this, I'm putting this out. So although there's always going to be a bunch of actors in this, people who are performing, we have to look at who is giving this to us. So I always default back to the source. Now, Black Lives Matter, the organization, is who posted this to Instagram. So I don't really want to vilify so much whoever, the little producer or videographer was, because I guess what they were doing is they're highlighting different, it's some kind of a thing that they're doing where they're highlighting different artists or something like that. So, but I just think the one that has the platform, that is where we should be looking.
I disagree. I think that we are at fault of this. It is us who has allowed this girl to get like this. It is us who has allowed them to become this ratchet. It is out of control. We don't say anything. We let the liberals, or whatever we're supposed to call them, tell us that we're supposed to accept this behavior. It is unacceptable. It's us. It's our fault. It's our problem. It's us who caused this. She doesn't have her community telling her to stop it.
Well, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say that one of you are wrong. I think that there's a lot of ways to be right about this, but I definitely will say that when you're seeing one thing that Black Lives Matter that's very interesting about Black Lives Matter, the organization, and it's got a lot of momentum because the term Black Lives Matter just sounds like a great term. I mean, who's going to disagree with a term like that? And and I know a lot of good Black people, well intended, who follow along because because we read headlines, we don't do our research. And I had a conversation with a guy who speaks to a lot of NBA players, and I told him, I said, please tell these guys to do some research on Black Lives Matter, form their own movement, because you're promoting something that doesn't reflect the community in a way that a lot of people agree with. A lot of my folks disagree with Black Lives Matter, and I said, now here's the other thing too that's really interesting. Black Lives Matter has become, kind of the front organization, one of the faces of the entire Black community. And a lot of people feel that's not my face. That's not our face. And they're collecting money with your face. They're using, they're doing what like charity organizations do this. Charity organizations will promote starving kids in Ethiopia and will collect $1 billion on behalf of starving kids in Ethiopia. And none of those kids' lives get that much better because of the money that was collected. Haiti, when Haiti had an earthquake, Haiti's trauma became the excellent marketing plan, the best marketing plan ever. You got a ton of imagery of people struggling, starving, dying, houses torn apart. And people were going out using this imagery to raise hundreds of millions of dollars on behalf of Haiti. And the Haitian people were saying, we're not getting this money. We have no idea where this money is going. And I see that happening with Black Lives Matter. I mean, even their own chapters have started screaming to the rooftops. I'll find the headlines so you guys can look at this. Some of their own chapters have started coming out saying, wait a minute, you're collecting all this money and we're not seeing this. This is not hitting the Black community. So I can't help but to say, and maybe someone can talk me out of this, but I don't look at Black Lives Matter and say, that's my organization. But I think a lot of white folks say, well, we want to do something better for Black people, so we're going to give money to Black Lives Matter. Any thoughts on that? I see T's really shaking his head, so we'll go to you first. Go ahead, brother.
No, that is absolutely true. And this is why they get a lot of love and support, especially from white people and white liberals. And to me, in my own opinion, I feel like white liberals kind of direct that whole Black Lives Matter movement, because if you guys remember in the 2020 election, there was a situation where a Proud Boy got stabbed by a member of the Black Lives Matter. Now, me personally, I think that's more of Antifa. But even then, when you talk about Antifa and how they walk around, white people with Black Lives Matter mask on, Black Lives Matter hoodie, the Black Lives Matter flag, waving it while buildings is burning, all of this is kind of like deflecting all of that onto Black people, because when you say Black Lives Matter, you instinctively think about Black people. And I totally agree with Ms. Rowe that Black people are kind of accountable for this, because we never as a collective call this stuff out. A lot of us are even afraid to speak of it because we're afraid to be called sexist and all types of these other names, race traitors. But a lot of us just don't have the courage to just speak out. So yes, this is going to get worse because we have a very complacent Black community.
Okay. Well, go ahead, brother.
I agree to an extent with that, but we still cannot discount the overwhelming power of the media in this country, especially when you have a government, a media that works basically by proxy of the government to silence all dissenting voices. So I understand that Black people are accountable in many ways for whether it be being afraid to speak up or just kind of just not paying attention. But I just don't want us to get into I always say this. We can't blame like the unfavorable results of like hundreds of years of oppression, racism, and oppression and miseducation on the victims of it. So I understand that there's a level of responsibility and accountability we must take, but we cannot allow that to overshadow the people who we have not been holding accountable this whole entire time. That's why we need to take charge of our education, because that's the only way we get out of this. Because what is the one reason why we keep having this circular debate in our community. Education. We need to take charge of educating our community, our children. We got to start somewhere. I'm sorry. I just get so tired of always going through the same conversations about, and when there's obviously one element that is the force that is holding us back, or that is the continuous force that is pressing back against us as a community. And that's why, like you guys were talking earlier about white liberals and their domination of these movements. I think that Black Lives Matter is the white remix of Black justice. They put their twist on it. It's their redefinition of it, and then we just kind of sit back and become complacent because we're used to everybody else being up front and taking charge and speaking on behalf of us, when we need to find our own voices. So I think alliances and coalitions, they are valuable, but not when it's at the expense of the groups that require the most attention, meaning us. White liberals, they tend to approach, Black movements for justice with this paternalism, or this dictatorial nature where no, Black folks, we know what's better for you. We know what's best. Just get to the side. We'll tell you what you need to do. So we need to do that inventory. So I agree. So it's not so much that I disagree. I agree that we have a lot of inventory to do amongst ourselves so we can organize without always inviting everybody else in. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. Sir,
Yep.
I want to say that I think that you have brought some truly wise counsel today, that a lot of us are not focusing in the way that you are, and I just really want to congratulate you for that. The ability to see the big picture is admirable to me, myself. I also want to say that under no circumstances do I believe that this female twerking, or whatever it's supposed to be called, is actually accountable. I don't actually think she's actually to blame either. I just think that she is not someone whose opinion we should be asking concerning what her, how she thinks things should be played out politically, because I don't believe she has the mental capacity to do so. I believe she's been used as a puppet, and it is unfortunate, but I don't think that we should believe that she has the mental capacity, considering the fact that she has done this, to make sound judgment. I also want to say, because she is in a position, and many, many Black women are in a position where they do not know how to make sound judgment. It is really, really true that the media has a strong hold on our women. Yes. The media has completely brainwashed our women to a point where they don't even have their own opinions. So when you say about education, it is important to understand that, Dr. Watkins here is doing everything he can to bring awareness to people. And that also is so admirable. I want to say that to you, Dr. Watkins, what you're doing here is something that it cannot be stopped. It's too late for someone to try to stop it, which means it's really the perfect time. I'm so happy to be here with you all in this perfect time in history, because as we know, for us to talk like this before was stopped. It is my pleasure to teach. My main purpose in life is to first make sure that my immediate family thrives in an extremely elegant and excellent way. But for our people also, I'm here also to teach. I'm not here just talking. Like, I am not interested in just talking. I am a teacher. We thoroughly teach women how to be re-raised and how to use their actual brain, because all of this other stuff is just embarrassing, monkey, rat-like foolishness. And I am here to be judgmental. I am here to be shaming. And I think that
So
we need to bring back the judging and the shaming.
So you are here for okay. So you're bringing the judging and the shaming, and I think that's okay. Everybody in the chat say yes if you think it's okay for us to judge a little bit and shame a little bit. And actually, if you read Powernomics, Dr. Claude Anderson actually says that as a code of conduct in you should have boundaries of what is decent and indecent behavior. You should actually have. He often speaks about inappropriate behavior, and I think that's correct. And so, everybody, by the way, we're here with the All Black panel, and we're talking about this Black Lives Matter campaign called Twerk on Washington. Oh. And you can kind of see, I'm going to actually flip the screen here so you can actually see some of it. There's a lady who's twerking, and she's twerking to Martin Luther King and all of that. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but it's real deep. Let's just, it's interesting. Okay, I got to pause that because I can't. I can only watch so much, but I just want to catch everybody up if you just came in. And this is what we're talking about. This was on the official Black Lives Matter Instagram page, and they actually made some really intriguing statements about why they shared this, and we read that earlier. By the way, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, share button, subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. I hope we've indicated to you the reason that we have to have independent Black media, and we need you guys' help on this. So we need you to proactively right now, whatever channel you're on, please hit that thumbs up, share, subscribe. Also, the panelists, I'm gonna give you all the panelists information on social media. Follow them. We need to create our own leaders in our own community instead of letting other people kind of infiltrate that. Now, with that said, let me ask you all a question about this. I did some research while we were talking about Black Lives Matter and the money. One of the things, you guys know money is my thing. And I found it really intriguing that they were able to use the pain and the trauma of Blackness to raise what is probably by now in the billions of dollars. And a lot of people are asking, where did that money go? And more people are asking that question now. And they should be asking that question. This is not an accusation, but it is some information. And I found this article on a site called ABC. It looks like ABC6 News. I don't know what city it's in. But basically, here's what one of the things when Black Lives Matter's leaders were being pressed about the money, they said this, and I'll read this to everybody. Black Lives Matter leaders have dismissed these conspiracy theories as a political disinformation campaign intended to undermine their mission, stressing any donations to the DNC. And I think the conspiracy theory was that they're pretty much the black wing of the Democratic Party, and that this money was going to go toward Democratic Party elections. But they said that the donations to the DNC would have to be publicly reported to the Federal Election Commission. However, they have not released particularly detailed information about where the donations are going. Quote, right now, our programs are focused on civic engagement, expansion of chapters, arts and culture, organizing, and digital advocacy resources and tools. That is a very vague response. I mean, that's super vague. I didn't see anything in there about building Black-owned businesses or restoring Black families or keeping Black communities safe or solving the problems that matter. Anything going towards some sort of reparations-related agenda. And so here's what I want to kind of throw at you. Ro mentioned a word earlier that I wanted to come back to. You said the word porn. And let me tell you why that word triggered me when I saw this thing with this, where they apparently believe that Blackness on MLK Day means twerking in front of children, which is inappropriate. I mean, if you want to see how inappropriate that is, imagine if a man was twerking his junk in front of kids on it and saying this represents MLK Day. That if you don't see the visual there, then that's the best I can do for you is to for a minute imagine that if I said that we're going to get a man to twerk his in front of children to celebrate Martin Luther King, y'all would probably want to have that guy arrested, which you should, because that's highly inappropriate. So with that said, I thought that word you used, Ro, it was interesting. It was a trigger word because when you go down that dark rabbit hole of that leftist agenda that's not really built on family values as we know them, it's sort of built on not just the idea of the twerking. That's kind of the beginning. There's a whole lot of other debauchery that goes down that rabbit hole that I'm not even going to speak about, because if I say the words too much, then I'm worried the YouTube censor bots are going to pick me up. So I don't want to do that. But I literally remember when I saw this video, my first thought before I even look at the video was, I was like, my God, please don't let this be a man. You know, because we don't know that literally, we literally could have just been watching a man do that, because that's their sort of vision for the world, vision for America. When Biden says that I think an 8-year-old should be allowed to choose their gender, I don't have anything against anybody, but no, I have a child in my house that is 10, and we're not doing that in my house. Right. And don't you bring that crap in my house. You do it in your house if you want to, but that ain't happening in my house. So anybody on the panel can dive in on this. Start with T. I haven't heard from you for a minute, T. What do you think about what I said? I talked about the money, and I talked about just how deep that rabbit hole goes when you talk about that agenda. What are your thoughts on that, and how that's affecting our community and our ability to move forward?
Well, yeah, I totally agree with the money part, because Black people, we are wanting to see the results of the advocacy, because the situation is changing as far as Black people and how we are dealing with the cops. Nothing is changing. But for them to be so shadowy about their money, to me, in my opinion, it just seems to be more of these gender social issues where it comes to, educating Black people more about transgenders and, that leftist stuff, the whole feminist stuff. So that, to me, I think that's the future of Black Lives Matter. And, to raise money, if a Black person dies, of course, they're going to be out there marching. But then after that, just push this agenda that makes no sense. And the other thing I just want to respond to, if that was a man doing that, I honestly don't think, I think it'll be worse, as far as we may not even be able to discuss that on this platform, because then they will call us all homophobes and they will censor this.
Yep.
So if that was a man, it'll be harder to discuss. And unfortunately, it would still be accepted. It would just be accepted. Why can a man do that? All this nonsense. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that situation.
Yeah,
I
think that. Oh, sorry
about that. I think it's okay for me. I think it's my right as an American to say, twerking is fine, but it shouldn't be done in front of children. And if you're a man, I do not want to see you twerking. I think that's okay. That if you want to flip and call me a blankophobe, whatever you want to call me, I'm laughing at you. Like, no, phobia means fear. I don't fear you. I just don't want to see that shit. Like come on. Like, why can't I just say no, thank you? And leave it at that. Like, do you, be you, live your life, but stop. Just get it out. Get it all out of my face, and get it out of the face of my children. I think that's what we're fighting for, right? Nobody's fighting for anybody to take away somebody else's right to be who they want to be. It's almost like we're defending territory here. What do you think, Tony?
I was going to say that I just pretty much think what they're doing is they're bullying us into acquiescence. If you think about it, you cannot have a dissenting point of view. There's always going to be a campaign against those voices who question things. So when you were talking about how Black Lives Matter was questioned and the dismissive nature in which they responded, see, that word dismissive, like, it jumped out at me, because I believe that just as they were dismissive in that interview, they're going to dismiss all of these calls to remove that twerking video. They're going to dismiss any concerns that Black people bring to the Democratic Party, to liberal agendas, to Joe Biden. You've seen how he dismissed all of those, so-called Black leaders in the meeting when he talked to them like they were basically slaves on a plantation.
Yes.
I think that the veil has been lifted now, and the power has been consolidated so much that they don't even see the need to hide the agenda anymore. It's almost like, what you gonna do about it? We dare you. What you gonna do? It's too late already. That's why, like, when I do my little town halls, I do town halls on my page. I always talk about that we're in a state of emergency. We don't have the luxury of sitting back and just next election, So when you had black people out there saying, listen, leverage your votes, demand something in return, that was important. This is like life and death for us right now. People are, they've been projecting that the Black Wealth Index is headed for like a net value of 0 by 2050. That's a bunch of crap. I predict it's probably closer to like 2030 if we haven't even reached it by now, because after how the response to the pandemic, it's like so much wealth is being extracted, not only from black people now, it's being extracted from everyone. So we're falling into the rich and the poor, like just two classes. And when the lower class tries to speak up in dissent, those who control the media, these large corporations, they have the power to shut everybody up. So I see, from what I see a lot of bullying of, listen, it doesn't matter what you think. We're setting the narrative. We're going to tell you whatever we want to tell you. And that's just how it's going to be. If you had a problem with it, you should have said something before you let us step in and take over.
And just to respond to Tony's thing, like you said, so many things can change so fast, right? The fact that Biden, Kamala, and the Democrats and everybody are in office for 4 years, we've seen, they haven't even been inaugurated yet. We've already seen the immigration, the legalization thing on the table. We've seen them talk crazy to the civil rights leaders who talked about doing something for the black community, but their first response then was COVID response, and now it's immigration. And instead of like organizations like Black Lives Matter, whoever pushing, whether it's reparations, pushing things for our community, pushing getting our money and quoting MLK on getting our check, right? Getting our land, getting what's deserved to us. We're sitting here talking about them pushing a narrative of liberation of twerking on Washington, right? Like we're having this discussion instead. And that's like you said, that's a distraction, but that type of stuff is only going to be ramped up. And that type of stuff can continue to happen over the duration of at least 4 years. And instead of, like you said, leveraging our vote and leveraging what power we had during this last election cycle, we were too busy trying to fight getting kids out of cages, and too busy trying to fight for LGBT, and too busy trying to fight for, transgender or whoever, instead of fighting for our damn selves, right? Too busy trying to fight of COVID.
And they didn't come to help us.
That's, you know what I mean? No, I get it. Like police shootings can be a problem or whatever, but there's a lot more black on black shootings than there are police shootings, right? Like, I know that kids in cages is sad, but your net value or your wealth being 0 in 20 years is a lot worse, right? Like, I know immigration and all of that it sounds good on paper, but if you let 11 million immigrants come in, your black wealth, like Tony said, is going to be 0 way before 2050. Right, like way before 2050. And so that's why I think it's so important, like that last election cycle was important, but even still to this day, coming together and finally realizing that some of this stuff doesn't benefit you or your community is should be priority number one over everything else.
Right. Well, I think it's a great point. You threw in there, and I keep as you all are talking about a lot of this, I keep on thinking about that money piece. And I did some research on it, and according to the Economist, who does a lot of research on this sort of thing, they claim that the Black Lives Matter organization and related causes has raised $10.6 billion. Now, I'm not going to put that kind of number on top of their head because that's a big number, and I wonder what they mean by related causes, but I'm going to assume if they gathered $1 billion, then my God, I mean that right there is a nice amount of money. And if it's 5 or 6 billion or more, you're talking about insane amounts of money. And what I've been reading is that there's just not a lot of clear transparency, not a lot of clear accountability. Almost like they're doing a big, gigantic Umar Johnson on the whole black community, except worse, literally out here just, I mean, like, I'm sorry, we got to call it for what it is. I mean, don't get mad at what Umar did. Maybe he got $1 million. You're talking about $10 billion right now that is unaccounted for, right? Where are the receipts? What is going on with this? And I think it's important. And it was always something where I was always sort of careful, because I have so many friends that just love that term Black Lives Matter, and they say the term, they'll put it on a shirt, and it's a slogan we can all believe in. But I think it's time that we make a clear, help people have a clear understanding. There's a difference between the slogan and the organization. The same thing happened with ADOS. You can keep the slogan, but when you get to the organization, there's a whole different level of complexity there. That doesn't mean that you should stay away from it. It just means you need to investigate it and research it to make sure that you want to carry that label, because these labels that we carry around, that has economic value. And remember, you're talking about a community that doesn't have what it needs. We don't have the resources that we need. So when people are collecting billions in resources, allegedly on our behalf, and it's not getting where it needs to get to, then someone needs to do some sort of investigation to say, okay, what's going on here? At least let people know what's happening. So I'd like for all the panelists actually to give like your final thought, maybe 90 seconds. I'll let you have the floor individually. We'll start with Mrs. G, ladies first. And before we do that, though, I'd like for everybody, if you could, please help us build this Black media. We are trying to expand. Please hit the thumbs up button right now. Hit the thumbs up, share, and subscribe button. If you have not done that yet, please do that right now. Also, subscribe at drboystv.com, because that is the place for intelligent Black people. So if you're ignorant, go somewhere else. If you're intelligent, then you are here. You are home. This is where we're gonna challenge your thinking. You do not have to agree with us. We just want you to think. That's it. I know we're gonna tell you what to think. We just want you to use your brain. All right. So, Mrs. G, your final thoughts on twerking on. Just so y'all know, while you're giving your final thoughts, I might give a little side roll of the twerking scene, just so everybody can get caught up. And so I hope that doesn't distract you too much. But Mrs. G, ladies first. What are your final thoughts on the twerk on Washington and Black Lives Matter? What are your thoughts?
Overall, I really think that this is a bigger picture concerning the fact that we are still begging and seeking for the white daddy to save us, and it really is never going to happen. Nobody white is going to save us. We cannot keep thinking that we have, a Black family and a white Jesus. This is going to go way, way, way too far. We need to save ourselves. We need to stop expecting these people to care about us with a vote, with a dollar, with an organization. They don't care. They're worried about themselves. They're never going to care. And all we need to do is we need to focus on caring about ourselves and find out that in reality, this is their territory. And so many of us want to fight and say that we have built America and we're going to stay and fight for it. Yes, we have built America, but America is a prison. And who wants to fight to stay living in a prison?
All right, Mrs. G, thank you for those kind words. Jeff Lightsey Jr., your final thoughts.
Just my final thoughts are, it was a sad thing to see this video, especially in the remix of a Martin Luther King speech, and especially on MLK Day. I do believe our people will overcome these type of things. I do believe that people like this woman in organization, maybe not organizations, but our people as a whole will overcome these type of things. We will get the last laugh. I genuinely believe that. Whether I'm naive or just silly, at some point we will get the last laugh. I do believe that we will end up on top, because slow and steady wins the race. Platforms like this and people speaking to intelligent Black people that are watching and people on this panel will continue to rise, even though our press is going to fight against it, whether it's censorship, whether it's telling us we're homophobic or whatever, or telling us that we're crazy or trying to make us seem crazy. But I do think at the end we will rise above all of it, because I think there's more intelligent Black people, and it's only growing. Powernomics is only growing the mindset. So I just think it's just slow and steady, but we have to continue to push the narrative and continue to let people know that you are better and overcome a lot of this craziness.
All right. Mr. Tony, give me Tony Lindsay. Mr. Tony Lindsay, your final thoughts.
Yeah, I would say the enemy has been masterful at convincing us that we have defined ourselves when he himself is being the one that is defining us. And I think that we are sold the illusion of progress through recurrent symbolism. So I think that what we need to do now is place a renewed focus on Black independent media, real dialogue within our community, and not relying upon celebrities and or quote unquote allies to set the direction of our movements. We need to be more invested in ourselves and in our younger generation, because those are the ones who are going to really lead us out of this mess. They're far more intelligent and brave than we give them credit for. So I'm a person that I really bank on the younger generation because they're so smart. And I just want to say thank you for allowing me to participate on this platform today. It was fun and very enlightening.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here. You're very intelligent. And everybody, by the way, Tony's movie is called Where Hearts Lie. So let's show him the power of Black economics by looking up his movie and supporting his film. You know, we need to create our own movie stars, our own Martin Scorsese's and everything else, and our own Grammys and Oscars and all those other crazy awards they give out. We could do it ourselves. So Mr. Tariq Abdul Khalik, your final thoughts, sir.
Well, yeah, you know, one thing I like to say is I remember Malcolm X saying, and I don't know the exact quote, but it went along something like this: I tend to follow the Black people who are typically attacked. And what he means is typically Black people who you see that are attacked by the media are the ones that you should really pay attention to closely, because they are the ones that's upsetting a power structure. And because they are upsetting the apple cart, they are the ones who is going to be silenced and censored. When I saw Dr. Boyce Watkins get attacked by The Root, not invited on any of these other liberal stations, I'm like, okay, this brother must be saying something very important. Maybe I need to listen to him more. The same thing with Ms. G. You know, a whole bunch of feminists come after her, paid, rich, liberal feminists come after her. And when you look at her content, it's more of bringing the Black family together. So we have to understand, especially Black people, the revolution is not going to be televised. So stop following organizations that white people put out in front of you that you should follow, because what that shows is that you're seeking their validation. Start looking to who funds these organizations. And, you know, I'm going to bring this up and I'm done, but we all understand white supremacy, but we have to be careful of scaring Black people in this, because I keep saying this, because once again, Black people are going to see white people as supreme. Therefore, we're going to keep seeking validation. We're going to keep begging them to include us. We're never going to look inward and focus on ourselves, because we're too focused on what white people are doing and what they can do for us to help better us. And that's got to change.
All right. Well, everybody, if you could take 1 second, please, and give the panel a digital round of applause, a digital thank you for all the great commentaries that they shared with us today. Also, I want everybody to know, if you go to theallblackagenda.com, there are elements and pieces there for the Black agenda that you can apply in your own household right now, today, without a politician's permission. Most of the resources are either free or they are very low cost. There's plenty right there for you. And also within the next couple of weeks, just so you all know, Ice Cube actually agreed to partner with me to give away 2,000 copies of Powernomics. But it's for those of you that can't afford a copy, right? So those of you who can't afford a copy, I hope you'll go buy one at powernomics.com. For those of you who can't afford one, we are going to do a giveaway where we're going to ask you to pay the shipping, but we'll give you the book for free. Because we believe that that's one of the keys. That's how you get things done in your own community. And I could give a damn less what Joe Biden wants to do. Now, with that said, I want to just finish up my quick final thought on this is when, you know, Mrs. G mentioned, when she said that word porn, it stuck out to me because she brought to my attention that whether you agree that twerking's okay or not okay, you know, I'd be stupid as a heterosexual man if I sat here and pretended like I could never enjoy, you know, a Black woman's body. I'm marrying a beautiful Black woman who has an excellent body. But one thing that we would not approve of is the idea of twerking in front of children, you know, swinging your junk in front of a child, and then claiming you're representing the Black community at the same time. And then at the same time, claiming you're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy, who's one of our most distinguished citizens in all of history of this community. I think it's okay for us as a community to stand up and say, Black Lives Matter. You know, we're not going to right now challenge you too much about that $10.6 billion that you've allegedly collected on our behalf. We'll get to that later. But at the very beginning, don't you go around putting dirt on our name like that. Don't you go around representing us. If you do that, we're going to treat you no differently the way we treat the KKK. If you behave that way and you're using blackness and you are engaged in debauchery and embarrassing behavior in the name of blackness, you are doing more damage than the Klan ever could. Because if the Klansmen put that on their Instagram page, nobody will pay attention. But when Black Lives Matter does it, and it's affecting all of us, you are spilling your nonsense, your mental illness, your sickness, your debauchery onto the rest of us. And we do not need people like you using that $10 billion that you stole from the Black community to mass market the disrespect of Black women, the traumatization of Black children, and just a very ugly, disturbing, stereotypical mess of an image of our community. So if you behave that way, you are not of us. You're not one of us, and we're not going to accept that. So that's my position on it, and that's what it is. And feel free to agree or disagree, but that's where we're going to be. So thank you again to the panel. It was wonderful to speak to all of you, and thank you all for hanging out with us. Please have a good night. And what the word for today is reparations. So put the word reparations in the chat so we can get refocused. They owe us $15 trillion, so they need to go ahead and cut the check. So thank you guys for hanging out. Have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Take care.